founder of the Marriage Forum, and she is the creator of Heartspace, the 6-part conversation. She has been seen on Fox News and on hundreds of radio and television shows demonstrating the results that we can create when we focus on solutions instead of on problems. So with that being said, I'd just like to move forward. And how about all of you out there? Have you ever moved in with someone and found out that there are so many problems? Or perhaps moved in with you and then you discovered there were things that started to drive you crazy? I know this is a reality, but tonight's show will demonstrate how to prepare yourself for the big change from dating to actually living together. That's a huge move in itself. And oh boy, Susan, I know I've been in that position. Even with girlfriends, I get surprises. So we're talking tonight.
Yes, you have.
A reality check, folks. I'm learning as well. I'm being educated. Now, I know we can explore. How about, Susan, when a couple are dating and they're having that great time and that they know, how do they know when they're really ready to move forward together?
It's very tricky because the fun that you're having on a series of dates is completely different. But let me ask you this. So if you're at a restaurant and you're having a really nice meal and you're saying, oh, this is really delicious. And I said to you, wonderful. Would you like to have that as your only meal for the rest of your life? What are you talking about? Well, that's what living with somebody is for couples who are monogamous. So you might really love a good juicy steak, or you might really love, any one of the fabulous Indian dishes, etc. But the question you have to ask yourself, do you want this partner and only this partner every single day for the rest of your life? Now, if you can say, I think I do, I really think I do, and your partner says the same thing, then you're probably ready to live together. A couple of conversations you can have that we'll talk about tonight, but you're probably ready. But if you start to want to jump up from the restaurant table and go screaming and running out the door, then that's a different answer.
So those food fights would qualify to move on, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, now I'd like to explore this. What's the real difference in pressure between spending weekends together and actually living together?
Well, I don't know about you, but after a great weekend with somebody, I used to need to go home and sleep. So if I had to go to work Monday morning, I would come right home from work and I would sleep. Really, the effort I put into having a fabulous weekend was exhausting for me. And I had a big career and now a big weekend too. It was just overwhelming. Not to mention all the beauty things you do on your own to get ready for the weekend or the important date or the hot date or the event. So it's very, very different. Living with somebody is very, very different from just being with them and showing them the best side of yourself.
That's the truth. What a reality check it can become. Well, let's explore this. What are some of those expectations that partners really have about living together that do not work?
Well, it's interesting. Women seem to have an expectation that their partner is going to be as helpful around the house on a day-to-day basis as the partner might have been on a couple of dates or even a long-term dating relationship. And the chances of that happening are very slim. And though there's a cute expression, honey-do list, there are a very small percentage of guys who are really excited about getting that list every day or every Friday. And over time, the things they might have done, like my friend Michael, he went on a date and the next day the woman calls him and said, my closet fell down. And he rushed over with his tool belt and got into a terrible relationship that was bad when it was happening. It was worse when it ended. So even here's somebody who was willing to do whatever it took and it was still, a disaster because other parts of the relationship were a huge problem. In the case of, the flip side, the man may have had wonderful hors d'oeuvres when he came to you, and you always had his favorite wine, and maybe you invited over for dinner. Maybe you spend days and days cooking his favorite dishes. Now you're living with him. You have a career. You have to rest. You have to get some sleep. Where are you going to find the time to take such good care of him? It's a challenge.
It certainly is. I'm exhausted thinking about it. It's
Me too.
It's a big commitment and challenge.
Me too. And you have to look great. It's a new relationship. So you have to get the meal on the table, and the meal has to be fabulous. And then you have to look fabulous. And then you have to do the same thing the next day. Oh, please.
Oh my gosh. I could just see me lighting a candle and forgetting about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how many men really do expect that happy homemaker? And I guess, what do we do to promote that fantasy?
Yeah, well, it's, the way you get into a relationship is the way you get out of a relationship. And that's a quote from Dr. Frank Zizzo, who's a really brilliant clinical psychologist and a good friend of mine. So what does that mean? That means if I spoil you like crazy when you're dating, I can't expect you to suddenly be looking for something different when things move forward and we've now committing ourselves to each other. Exactly what you have trained somebody to expect is what they're going to expect. Now, the bottom line here is, don't say to yourself, oh, good, well, then I won't do that, and I won't do that, and I won't do that. But the high probability is that she'll find another guy who will. He'll find another woman who does. So this is a very, very, very complicated topic. When you are motivating and inspiring somebody to date you, you have to show your best side, but at the same time, you can't create a fictitious picture of yourself. Like, one of my best friends when I was growing up got married very young. I don't know if she was even 20. She married this fabulous guy who she'd been crazy about in high school. And her mother would send the cook over while Ricky was at work. Barbara's mother would send the cook over, her mother and stepfather's cook, and she would make all these different things. Barbara didn't know anything. I mean, in those days, we knew how to boil water. That was about it. And one night, Havana didn't fully cook the duck and said to Barbara, if this is going to be great, when your husband comes home, then preheat the oven to whatever, and then cook the duck for whatever amount of time. I don't remember. And Ricky sits down, and the duck is absolutely raw because Barbara didn't even know how to test whether the meat was done or not. And I understand this because I only learned how to cook when I was on my own, but I didn't have a husband expecting me to put meals on the table. So it's a real question of, what are you expected to do? And that's culturally, what does your culture, your environment expect from you? What does the guy or the woman expect from you? And then you have to be very careful about how you adjust or learn in order to meet those needs.
I would suggest that they talk to you first,
Yes.
Susan.
Yes. And remember, I did not know how to cook anything until I was 19, and I could tell you a lot of funny stories. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, how about this? The I Dream of Jeannie fantasy. I know that is fairly popular too. And are men actually still looking for her when they choose a partner?
Oh, please. It's just amazing to me that until most men get to be in their mid-40s, they really expect that the way the woman looked on a Saturday night is the way she's going to look when she wakes up on a Sunday morning. And if you're a natural beauty, so then you're what? 1% of 1% of the human population. And so you can look fantastic without, mascara and lipstick and all the rest of it. But the rest of us humans out here, we weren't that lucky, And so it's up to you. Are you going to be with a guy who's looking for you to just, like on Bewitched, twitch your nose and a miracle occurs? Or what did Jeannie do? She did something with her hands, didn't she? Okay,
yes.
do something with her hands. Or are you going to just say, I'd love to do this or I'd love to do that. I just need about an hour to get it together. And that's a very important thing. You have to literally train your partners, whether they're men or women. You have to train them so that your needs can be met and their needs can be met.
And that beautiful appearance, the results, worth the wait. Or accept the person how they are. That's charming too, I think. They're real.
Well, you know, it's a little dangerous though. I mean, if you're talking about all these naturally beautiful women, they still get to be about 45 and they still need a little something like the rest of the rest of the population. So the problem about not putting on makeup and not doing your hair for the first 45 years of your life is you probably won't look that great, you know, and you're around women who have spent a lot of time and energy like we just did, you know, primping and crimping. So that's a problem. How are you now going to learn at a certain age to put yourself together in a slightly different way? You're around women who are beautiful with makeup, with hair, with all that. It's tricky. So as you get older, you then fall into the same category that I'm describing. You have the same problem the rest of us have.
Very clear, absolutely necessary. At least brush your teeth. No.
Yes, and whiten them. And whiten them, please, as you get older.
So please share with us what is the impact of porn and how that has so many couples living together and marrying.
That is a huge, huge problem in marriages. Here's why. Maybe it's not what you expect. I went to a wedding in, 1999. A friend of mine got married. In fact, I gave her the fabulous, fabulous cream lace dress that I had worn at my wedding, and she wore it to her wedding. And so she marries this guy, and it looks like it's going to be a sensational marriage because she was practicing meditation, he was practicing meditation, just as my second husband and I did. So she thought it was going to be a fabulous wedding and a fabulous marriage. Who knew that the guy was addicted to porn? It turns out that her assumption was that now they were living together and now they were married, his interest in porn would disappear. So please understand that an addiction to porn has nothing to do with being alone. It has nothing to do with not having a woman to have sex or a man to have sex with. An addiction to porn is like any other addiction. It's a maladaptive attempt to change brain chemistry, which is a maladaptive attempt to feel better or feel less awful. And being with her made no difference. And you know, the difference is that when I divorced my second husband, and that was one of the reasons, I wasn't angry about it. You know, it was just one of those things that happened and I had no way of knowing. She, on the other hand, was enraged because she believed that because she was in the picture, he shouldn't have had an addiction. She didn't understand addiction. I want to make sure that you do. And incidentally, on my new website, there's a whole section about Heartspace sobriety. For, you know, there's millions and millions of people in the world who have either this addiction issues themselves or a loved one or a family member does.
Thank you, Susan. I'm one of those people that thinks, you could make a difference, but it is the issue with the individual.
You can make a difference, but not just by being there. So yeah, you can make a difference. That's what my program's all about, one committed family member. It just means you have to learn a lot of skills. So it's not just, she thought that just by being there, you know, oh, I'm here. No, that wasn't it at all.
Wasn't that easy?
It's more complicated, right? Exactly.
So why do some couples that I know, I love you guys, they just fight and they stay together for forever, it seems, and others arguing just a little bit, that's their kiss of death.
Yeah. So it all depends on what your needs are. Some people have a need for traumatic bonding. They come together dramatically in this argument, and then they burst apart, and then they come together for make-up sex, and it's thrilling, and then everything's calm for 2 minutes. and then they fight about something the next day, and this is a biochemical imbalance that causes all of this. It's really simple. You know, you take the saliva and urine tests at home that I talk about, and you don't have to live this way anymore if you don't want to. And the couples who fight, you know, once or twice a month and decide even that's too much, those are couples who have a huge need for peace. That's all they want. So it's not really a right or wrong, though I will tell you that if you fight a lot, it exhausts your adrenals. Your adrenals probably are exhausted anyway, which is why you have this habit. And over time, it's a very, very dangerous route.
Very clear. So if that's going on, we think of HALT. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or
great.
are you in balance?
That's great. That's wonderful.
Now, I know that a lot of people, they really stay together all the time, but they complain all the time as well. Is it an addiction to drama, or do they actually see themselves as victims?
Yes, and you have no chance of fixing anything if you believe you're a victim. You have no power. That's living in a house of cards, resting on quicksand. No power. If I work with your partner and your partner learns how to calm you down, your partner learns how to motivate you and inspire you, your partner has all the power. Think about that. So if you think you're a victim now, I'm telling you that when I teach your partner how to motivate and inspire you and calm you, you're going to be in much worse shape because you had no ability to get your needs met, and now you're with someone who has an ability to get his or her needs met. So think about this very seriously. Think carefully. If you don't want to, stop seeing yourself as a victim and call me for a free session and see if you are interested in turning this mess around. Because I'm interested in you turning it around.
Very powerful for the individual that chooses to do this. Absolutely worth educating. I know that there is something you also teach to couples, the couples mediation or the marital mediation. Could you describe what these are about?
Thank you, sure. So let's imagine you think you're ready to live together, but you're not sure. And because you're human beings, there have been things over the last 6, 9, 12 months, and please don't think about living together in less than 6 months. And only if 95% of your relationship time together is wonderful. Don't even think about it. You know, fixer-uppers are for houses, not for people. Now, having said that, let's imagine your relationship is fantastic. So it's 6 months have come and gone, and you're thinking, well, why are we paying 2 rents or 2 mortgages? Let's start living together. That's when you need to have a conversation or series of them, which I can teach you to do, in which you clarify what your needs are, clarify what your partner's needs are, and understand the best ways to meet those needs. So if somebody says they want peace, do they mean peaceful conversation and walks on the beach holding hands? Or do they mean peace and freedom to go kayaking by themselves every Saturday? That's all the difference between night and day, isn't it? If somebody is very romantic and very passionate, which are 2 separate things, by the way, but let's say this partner is both, is very romantic and passionate going to leave you feeling choked and overwhelmed and exhausted because your idea of sex is not your partner's idea of sex and your ideas of togetherness are different? Or is it going to be the thrilling relationship you've always dreamed of? And that's the kind of thing I mean. And we could go on with this, you know, for 16 hours. It's complicated.
Yes, but a lot to explore before you make that move.
Please.
Not after, when, you know, other things come up and it gets even more complex.
That's right.
So, are there really some special preparations that they need to make really before they do decide to live together?
Yeah, you have to truly understand each other's needs. So when she says neat and clean, what does it look like? and who's doing it. So if it's neatness and the cleaning lady's coming every week and neither of you likes to put stuff away, then the cleaning lady may not have time to clean the house and also put everything away. Or you may not like things put away. The cleaning lady may move things that you may freak out. So neat and clean, something as simple as that, is very complicated. You have to learn, well, Bob, when I hear you say that you like things very neat, I imagine what you mean is you want to make sure we both hang all of our clothes up, we both put all of our newspapers or magazines in a pile, we both make sure all of the dishes are rinsed and immediately put in the dishwasher. You want to make sure blah, 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 blah. Is that what you mean? Did I miss anything? And maybe he says, that's not at all what I meant. I'm assuming you're going to do that. I'm talking about the dog dishes, the bowls on the floor. I can't live like this. So it sounds as if you were hopeful that when I moved in, I would keep the dog bowls and the dog toys and maybe the leashes somewhere else, that maybe we should discuss that. What are you thinking? So that's what marital mediation or couples mediation sounds like. You don't go, what do you mean? Rah! You reflect back what your partner has said in a very calm manner, very open to hearing what his needs are, and then little by little coming up with some solutions that are going to work.
That's really covering a lot of ground and very helpful. Why does each partner really need to do that research, detective work into the other person's past? And how do you go about doing that?
You know, it's sad that I have so many horror stories to tell you. And, you know, even clients where I have begged them to ask their partners for the last 3 tax returns. And if they've asked and they've gotten them, remember that does not confirm that this year is a good year too. Now, it's okay if you're thinking of moving in January or February, you know, you get whatever you can get from the previous year. That's a limited amount of time, maybe 14 months. But sometimes people give you all sorts of stories and you may not pick up on, oh, well, my accountant, we took an extension, then we took another, something very suspicious. And if you hear things that are clearly red flags, you cannot ignore them. Because I've seen really horrendous things. A woman who gave up everything to move in with a guy who she was going to marry, and she asked and she didn't get what she wanted. And he was certainly busy. He was in real estate, and he was busy. He was running around showing a lot of properties. The problem was he just wasn't closing them. Things were going into escrow and they were falling out of escrow. So he certainly appeared to do all the things that a successful realtor does, except for the conclusions weren't there. And she was a very successful woman, and it was a mess, and she had to get a divorce. Because every time the question of money came up, there was all sorts of problems, and he was really looking for someone to share the mortgage. He wasn't looking for a wife. He was looking for someone who was to have a financial stake in his welfare. To be careful.
Boy, get the facts for sure. Well, share with us what a successful plan to live together would look like.
In a successful plan, you, not the other person, you, have learned how to motivate and inspire your partner to openly discuss his needs that are met, his needs that are not met, your needs that are met, your needs that are not met, and then ultimately how to meet more of those needs, what would work best for you, what would work best for him or her, and that you have this ability in a calm and easygoing way to motivate and inspire him or her every day if needed. So you never feel that you're so stressed because you can't communicate. And what's the difference between what most people are doing now and what I teach? It's night and day. the 6-part conversation, you calm yourself down before you communicate. Thank you, Fred. Then with empathy, you calm your partner down and listen. Then you, with self-expression, reflect back. What has that person said? Oh, okay, Bob. So what you're saying is you don't really want to put magazines and newspapers in a pile because you've got something next to the fireplace. And what we should do is as soon as we're finished, we should just put all the old newspapers in there. Great, that sounds great. So that's part 3, self-expression. But then you'd also talk about your other things. Well, you know, when you talked about the dishes in the sink, I completely agree with you about rinsing a dish when I use it and putting it right in the dishwasher. I just know that sometimes if I've cooked something, I want the pots to soak. I don't want you to get crazy. If we have a meal and I decide to put the pot in the sink and let it soak for a couple of hours. So is that something you can live with? So that's what it sounds like. And it has to sound like a normal conversation that you're having in which you're motivating him or her and you're coming up with solutions and gently back and forth and back and forth.
Very peaceful. It sounds so easy, Susan. So that's the next question. When people really do have their needs list that clear, what is their best approach to using that list?
Well, I do have a 4-hour video training on my new website, heartspacesolutions.com. And it's a 4-hour video training because it takes time to learn this stuff. It really does. So once you've got a clear idea of your partner's needs and your needs from one or more of these conversations we've spoken about, and you've already got a pretty good idea of what the strategies you would want to utilize to have solutions would look like, then it's really just up to you to do it and see if you've understood. So if you think that having dinner on the table is exactly what your partner's looking for, because he knows you're a great cook and when you dated, he always complimented you on your food, it may be a different story now that you're living together, because he may need to stay at the office late and he may not be in the habit of telling you when he's not going to be home on time, or he may have a habit of bringing his business partner home or somebody. You know, you have to acclimate yourself to one another because you're very different. You were raised differently, you had different life experiences. So don't freak out. After it's happened, the next day when you're calm, then you would say, you know, Jane, I was just a little concerned. I said I would make dinner for you tonight because you were working late, but then you came in and you had your best friend with you who works at the company with you. And we had enough food, but it was just confusing how we suddenly gonna, organize ourselves. So just, would you be willing to do me a favor? Next time you're thinking of bringing someone home, give me an hour heads up so I can make sure there's enough food. Because, if I'm serving fish, I might have had to go back to the fish market. All right? So you see what you get back. Now, if this person was really easygoing when you were living together, and this person's not so easygoing now, then, shoot me a line and we'll talk about it, because this is a whole other story.
Exactly. Oh, thank you, Susan. You think that would be the appropriate action? But as you know, lots of stories implying not so.
Yeah, it can be, but then also it can't be, because needs are very complicated. And what we may think, I was talking to somebody today, she thought he had a need for support, but it was actually a need for freedom, which could be the opposite of support. And she, I get that, she said to me. It was terrific. I was able to really drill down and see what the exact need was.
I like that. That's an important one. Peace, freedom. Well, I can see we're at that